How funny is that you know one of my mates from high school?
It's not too shocking, but yeah, it is a small world, isn't it? It's funny.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, you can see he's a great man, a best friend of mine, been a mentor at times as well. So I'm sure a good friend of Roman is someone that I'll always get along with.
It's funny, dude, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, he's a good lad. So this is a mate we were in the same year at school, and we went to a school that my personality and my choices weren't really cool. Mm. Like I was into acting and music, and I played soccer, and I went to a private school where, you know, the arts were not really very celebrated, and it was a rugby union school. So I didn't tick any of those traditional cool kid boxes, whereas Roman did. You know, Roman was awesome at rugby, really good, and he's a big guy, and we shouldn't have really been friends because, you know, we kind of shouldn't have really fraternised in the same groups. But Roman was always a really good mate to me, and I think secretly he's always wanted to be an actor.
Yeah,
that's probably why. So he was living vicariously through me. So I got a lot of love for him too, man. He shouldn't have been mates with me, but he always stuck up for me when the cool kids would give me a bit of grief.
Mate, that conversation alone, I'm fascinated by. I spend a lot of time probably reflecting on that time in my life. Like I can speak openly and say that without any arrogance, I know that I have a bit of a presence. And you speak about our journeys individually, like, yeah, I was the sporting guy and I've always been a bit louder and bigger personality, and that's one of my greatest assets in what I'm doing now, which is interacting with people, because unlike maybe in my school days where I was a class clown and definitely not a bully, but, you know, willing to have a laugh at everyone's expense, I now understand the powers that I have to use that presence to impact other people and make them feel welcome, make them feel safe, make them feel vulnerable and that they can be themselves. So if there's one thing that I could have, I'd love to go back in time into school and just know what I know now and harness my presence, my powers, my personality to just have such a massive impact in what is a crazy world, that high school, you know what I mean? It's chaos.
Dude, it is. And it's interesting to hear you say that, because it takes, you know, you don't know who you are or what you're doing. You're just a mess of fucking hormones and just, you know, feelings and trying to pretend that you're an adult and, you know, trying to figure out all this stuff. And it is a real journey of like it's hard to hone that stuff. To, like, I think especially as a high schooler and as a young lad, as I said, your hormones are going crazy, and you may observe, I can actually command a bit of attention if I do this, or even if I don't do this, just because, you know, maybe some girls like me, or maybe some guys don't like me, or whatever it might be. You start to observe yourself, and that's an intoxicating thing for a young lad, you know. So harnessing that. I mean, fuck, I don't know if you ever master it, but it's only in my 30s when I've started to really be able to reflect upon myself and who I am in the world, and try and go, okay, how do I make that into something useful? So yeah, it's interesting to hear you say the same. I was going to ask
you that question, but you pretty much nailed it. And I feel like the 30s was the beginning of myself embarking on that journey, not only of self-reflection, but my own personal development. But the key word around all of that is just awareness. Like, I think part of it is maturity, and I've always been very independent, and certain things, like all of us, whether it be the conditioning or the experiences that we've had, definitely have an influence on who we are and the way we dictate our lives. But like yourself, I'm sure I've had my own personal adversities and the roller coaster that is life, which has taught me my greatest lessons and my biggest growth. But I don't know, I'm just so grateful right now I think about this often, to have the mindset that I have and the awareness that I have, because I've been in certain situations where coming out of professional sport into what is like a corporate environment, and interacting less with professional athletes in my own bubble and more with the general population. And initially, you know, I might have had some conflicts with, why don't people think like this? Why don't they work like this? Why isn't their attitude like that? And then on this self-development journey, I've started to understand and realize, well, you know, not everyone's had the exposure to things that I've had. So that instantly takes away that response, that emotional response. Well, okay, I see things differently. Go further to that and understand how impactful our experiences and the conditioning of the people who have influenced our lives now has on who we are and how we perceive the world. Again, that gave me this new perspective on people and certain situations that allowed me to take away those triggers and emotions and just seeing things for what they are and understanding. I truly believe that everyone's a good person, everyone's got potential, but through whatever situation or pathway they've had in life, it hasn't always been able to expose that, or it hasn't given them an opportunity to be themselves or be who they want to be. So it's a beautiful perspective that I'm very grateful that I have, along with awareness and reflection and willing to be vulnerable. So I think about that all the time. Just very grateful for the way I think, because I know that not everyone has had that opportunity or mentoring or exposure.
Yeah, well said. I think that what you're describing, that kind of self-awareness, I'm sure you can agree with this. It's really painful at the beginning, and it still is. You just get used to it. Like if you're not in a place where you're comfortable with your life, looking at what the schools of psychology call shadow work, it's the shadow for a reason. You don't want to go there. It's, and it's even just little things, like when you learn stuff about your own behaviors and you say something to someone and something, for whatever reason, you start to observe yourself and go, why did I say that?
Yes.
You go, what? I've upset them clearly. So my two options are, I can either justify my behavior and then I'm off the hook, or maybe don't justify it and look at myself and go, fuck, what did I do wrong there? Why did I do that? When what reasons do I have to be that? And that is a real can of worms, man. Like it doesn't seem like it, but I tell you what, it really can be. And then
That's
when
so
you open
powerful.
that, yeah,
so powerful. But it just comes down to, again, in summary, that exact thing that you just spoke about, and I'm sure will be a part of many conversations that we are going to have. It all comes down to the way we perceive these things. You know what I mean? Like you do have literally a 50-50 down the line choice in that moment, as you just said, a response or a reaction to something. You can choose to justify it or make an excuse or blame someone else, or you can make the choice to see this as an opportunity to, why did I do that? Like, why is this triggering me? Why am I having that response? And almost put a gap in between your thoughts and your actions. And it's not rocket science. Like you would agree, I'm no guru. I'm sure you wouldn't call yourself the same, but just these things that I've started to understand, and it is a practice. You have to practice these things and they grow stronger like anything else. But once you have the awareness, I suppose, with great power comes great responsibility. And then when you understand your faults and mistakes and you don't do anything about it, well, then that's a problem.
Yeah, you're totally right. With great power comes great responsibility, and everyone's heard that.
That's probably a line from Superman or something.
Yeah, well, I think it's actually Spider-Man.
Yeah, there you go.
but everyone's heard that. It's probably long before Spider-Man, but everyone's heard that, and you go, yeah. But it's not until you embrace those kinds of situations in your life when you actually really, really get that. And I think, kind of what you were saying before, when you go through. So I got a little girl, right? She's just turned 2.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it's really amazing. It's really, and it's, I'm doing my role as her dad is to, well, I'm still figuring out what that is, but the amount of learning about myself that it has brought on has been more in the last 2 years than it has in my entire life combined.
Crazy.
Because it's like, you got to get this shit right.
Yeah.
I do not. Yeah. This is a real person. This isn't a handbag. This is something that you have to do your best to get it right. And it's observing the things that have been really tough in my life that have taught me things. And in turn, observing how I need to walk the balance. I think this is the difference between the dad and the mum, right? The maternal instinct is nurture. She grows the child, she feeds the child. It's all nurture, and the paternal instinct still nurture, but there's an extra element to it, which is, I think that the male instinct is to go, here's the world, and I need to empower her to be able to be capable in the world on her own without me. So what that means is there are situations where she's going to hurt herself either physically or emotionally. And sometimes I have to let that happen. And that's the last thing that I want in here. And it usually happens when my wife's not around because she can't bear to let it happen.
Of course.
But it's really important, because you can obviously hurt your child and be too aggressive and whatever. And we all know what happens when the parents aren't loving enough, and that's pretty simple. But if you're too loving, too hands-on, and not allowing your child to go through hardships, where are the lessons? As adults, we're talking about lessons that we've learned. They're from the shittest things that happen to you.
Yeah,
and that's how you really become.
True.
Yeah, it's how you really become
So
a
true.
man. And so, just being able to adopt that and go, okay, no, where have I learned all the good stuff? It's from the hard things, and try and, create an environment where my daughter can have hard experiences where she's going to be okay, but can come out the other side stronger. It's a trip, man. It's real tough.
Mate, I can imagine. And, you got an awesome energy. I love talking to you, and I can tell that there's a lot of, alignment in terms of where we're at and the way we're trying to see the world and things we're trying to achieve. One thing I want to, off the back of that, just speaking openly, I'm at a point where I think I'm very focused on what I'm doing. I've got a lot going on. I've got some big ambitions, big dreams. Not all, I think once upon a time in my sporting career, it was probably selfish, and not as a negative connotation, just I was focused on me. And now I'm focused on all of these things. I really struggle with the concept of how would I bring someone into the world and shift my whole priorities onto them? Like, this is what I see from, people having children and stuff like that. But then the other side to it is everything I stand for, everything I'm trying to do and achieve, what would be more impactful than impacting the life of another human, like bringing that person into the world and all of my experiences, all of my lessons, all of my knowledge, and a true reflection of the person that I'd love to see someone be, and transfer that in, like you said. And then second to that, it's like that would be the paradox where you want to protect this person and you want to make sure they have everything that maybe you didn't have, but then you look back, and I can openly and wholeheartedly say, and this is probably another conversation about my relationship with failure, but I know that my greatest everything, solutions, growth and lessons, have come through my hardest times. So how could I perceive them as bad or negative or fear those things? And then how could I instill that same value to avoid these situations in someone else? I just couldn't. So that would be the balancing act between exposure and, I suppose, support, just making sure you're there for that person and you can mentor them and you can give them advice, but in no way, shape or form could I hold them back from their own mistakes and failures, because I know the value of what's going to come off the back of that.
Yeah, man. I think about that a lot, the word failure, and tell me what you think about this, right? Because as you're a big guy, you when you go to the gym and you work out, quite often you hear, okay, we're going to go to failure. That's how you build muscles. Everyone's done the hypertrophy training where you do enough reps until you fail. Your muscles are done. You can't push anymore, right? And that is the good place, right? I think in my life,
that's a great analogy.
Well, it was only when I started to go, I want to try and get big muscles, I want to try and be strong, that I learned that failure is a good thing. That's what to strive for. And I kind of think I have a bit of an issue with like this. It's, in school, you are scolded for failing. It's bad. You didn't get enough, you didn't get the right marks. Oh, you get a C. That's bad. You get lower. Oh, Johnny got an A. Johnny's better than you. That's the message. Johnny's a better person than you are because you've failed. And there's no like, okay, the attitude around failing is not cool. So what did we learn? This is the good stuff, because Johnny didn't learn shit. Johnny he just knows. He probably is someone who is naturally good at that. That's what happens in school a lot anyway. The people who, because the system's set up for this one type of learning, and Johnny happens to learn that way. So it's easy. He's probably not working that hard. Of course not. That's not all the case. There's lots of kids that work their ass off. But the point is same thing with sport in school. I remember there was a guy who just developed early and he went through puberty early, and he was just a man competing against all these boys, just fucking crushing everyone, you know.
Well, I remember those boys for sure.
Yeah, and you're like, well, this is just insane. There's nothing that I can do. I'm a loser. I lost.
Yeah.
You know, but it was, and it's interesting, you know, talking when you embrace failure, that's actually something that I really am conscious of teaching my little girl when she's old enough to understand about, like, failure is not bad. Failure is actually probably better than just doing something the first time really well.
Yeah, and again, what you've just dissected is the perception of failure. And I think one great point you mentioned is, I think failure by comparison, which is what you mentioned, is a big problem, right?
So getting worse too with Instagram.
By
and stuff.
comparing your results, your achievements, your abilities to someone else, and then applying the result of did you win or did you fail to that example is a huge problem, because it really doesn't hold any relevance to the picture, to the person, to the story. So I think that's a massive issue. But I have developed, and I'm very passionate about these things that we're talking about, because, again, it's not rocket science. I'm not a guru. I've just developed this understanding, and I've made a choice that I'm going to perceive these things a certain way. And it is a choice. And guess what? It only has to make sense to me. Of course, if it was detrimental, it would be a problem. But when I look at failure and I have this conversation, and this is the lens that I look through it in all aspects, and I say, well, let me ask you a question. Let's go back and let's rattle off and start to think about all of the times we've faced adversity, we've failed, we've lost, we've come up short. Now, tell me, because I know that factually this is going to result in the same conversation, tell me what happened after that. Did you come up with a better way, a solution? Did you learn something? Did you grow? And it's unanimous. Everyone's like, well, yeah, I did. So then tell me, if this negative or bad situation, was it negative or bad? Well, yeah, in hindsight, no, it wasn't. So then with that understanding and that acceptance and that belief, how do you go into any situation with a fear of failure, knowing that you will win, succeed, or learn, grow, or come up with a great solution? What is there to fear? And that conversation, that thought, that's just a choice. That's a belief that I have, that I've accepted. And I know it's going to serve me. So that's how I choose to perceive failure. And I think about what you said all the time. Who made up the definition and the rules around failure once upon a time? Idiot. They ruined it for everyone.
Yeah, they really poisoned it, didn't they? It's what you've just laid out. You're right. It's really simple, but it's not easy. It's actually,
but
it's really hard.
It starts with that awareness. Like, at some point, someone has to be exposed to that. And that's what this is for. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
That's why we're having this conversation, because someone will listen to it, and like the podcasts and the books that we've all listened to, and it's like, oh, it's not that you didn't know it, but wow, that landed. I get it.
I get it in this context for some reason.
Now maybe I can adopt that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, that's what this is, and it's just exposure to these different thoughts and these concepts that are relevant to us and make sense to us. And then all of a sudden we can adopt it. We start to change our habits. We start to change that internal story that doesn't serve us, and we see a shift. And it was all you. It was all us. We're in control. What we think.
Yeah.
No one can control what goes on in there. That's one good thing that we got.
That's right, dude. I mean, have you ever done any psychedelics?
Yes.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't really get this shit until the mushroom taught me. It was like, you know, I was curious about this stuff, and I was definitely questioning reality and my view on the world, hence why I went and decided to eat some psychedelic mushrooms. But it was the lessons that the mushrooms taught me that was like, oh, whoa, now I know why you're not allowed to do these, because this is like, you kind of go, oh shit, I think I get it now. You know, I learned so much about myself and about the way that I had been conditioned to view the world. And I think that what you're talking about is one of those things about how, hang on a minute, why am I so scared of losing or scared of failing? Because by not having a crack at something, I'm losing. Yes. So it's not like the not having a go is any better than trying and not winning, because exactly as you said, there's no lesson from not trying.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, yeah, to your point, I was going to ask you what if you, in summary, what do you think was the most significant thing that came from your experiences? I think you nailed it. And I found that it just opened my mind a little bit more. It was almost an enhancer to the journey that I was on, and it just gave more weight and understanding to what I was starting to see as, there's a deep conversation about life and the reality and everything that we're exposed to. And I think there's a realm where you can't control certain things. Like the world around us is going to be the game that we are in, whether we like it or not. But how we choose to play that game, I think we do have some control of. And whether that's my interactions with other people, whether that's the thoughts I have, whether it's the way that I look after my body and choose to, live my life. But I feel like what it did was it created this new perspective of everything isn't just as black and white as I may have learned and as it seems. And maybe I should continue to push the boundaries of what is possible and what I've learned and what the true definition or meanings of certain things are. And it's a catalyst for an amazing journey that I'm on, and I'm sure you're on, and has massively, significantly contributed to my own personal self-development for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely echo that. So what did you take? Mushrooms?
Yeah, mushrooms for sure have been a very profound experience. And just, it's an enlightening, probably one step further would be DMT. Obviously that's shorter lifespan, a lot more impactful, if you will. And there was one specific experience, which was the 5-MeO DMT, which...
Oh, you've done that?
Yeah, I've done that. And that was a massive one. That was like times 100. And I remember in that moment, didn't really know what to expect. And it was all of 2 or 3 minutes, but it's like a full body energy takeover. It's not so much of a sit back and hallucination, but in that moment, I went in there with some intentions and did it with some great people with some great energy. And then after that, there was a 2-minute period. Obviously, I've been able to watch this recording where I just started speaking, and I don't really remember in that moment, but some of the things I said, and just finished with like, I'm a vessel for a higher purpose. And it was just one thing I felt, so maybe it's hard to articulate for some, but ego is something that we have and we all need, but it, again, shifted my perspective of ego. And all of a sudden it was like that breakthrough or kick off the cliff that I needed to just say, you know what, like there's always been something inside you. And I can say this wholeheartedly, and I'm very grateful for everything that I've had in my life, especially football and all the rest of it. But I do question about some of the choices and the journeys that I've been on. Although it was my dream from a young age and I loved it and it gave me so much, like, was it true to my core, my calling, or what I was supposed to be doing? The truth is probably not. And I've always had this feeling inside me that, like, I know that my best contribution is impacting other people. You got to navigate your own shit and your own wants and needs and try and get through that. And then, well, what does that mean? How does that? And I'm kind of at a point where I'm definitely not all the way there. This is a constant evolution, but I've positioned myself where I'm truly living through my purpose. And I'm so grateful, for the man that we spoke about, Roman. He's given me this platform where now I can impact and access people at scale. And I'm biased, bro. Like, I do the programming and I love altitude training, but what I really love is now I get access to 150, 250 people in their studios. So I can come in, they're listening to me, and through a greeting, big, small, introverted, extroverted, young, old, I can make them feel a certain way and maybe offer them a bit of a shift on their perspective and the way they see life. And like, that's what I'm so passionate about. So I am really grateful, but I know it's cliche, but I've kind of reached the point where what we spoke about at the start, which was alluding to the kids, I'm on this journey and I've got all these aspirations and these dreams, and like anyone else, I want financial freedom and all the great things that come from it, but I have really been able to disassociate with the outcome and just be really present in the fact that it only takes a quick check to check myself and be like, whoa, come on. Like, if it didn't all work out, I'll give it my best shot, but like, I'm loving what I'm doing, and there is an underlying belief that if I stay true to that and myself, that the outcome will probably take care of itself. But I'm just very grateful to be in that position and have the platform that I do have.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
good for you. That's like, I feel like that's the key, you know.
It is the key.
And it's easy to it's a tricky egg to hold, you know, because you can squeeze that one too tight and you crack it, or you don't hold it tightly enough and it gets away. Like, but been coming back to the moment, and you know, you've used the word grateful and gratitude a lot of times, and it's, you know, people can think it's cliche and all that kind of stuff, but that anyone who winces at the word gratitude is just someone, there's just bitterness there, because it's really simple. What that stuff about just sitting down and going, what am I grateful for? What's here now? Because you look, you know, as a musician, right, you can guarantee that someone like who could I aspire to be, like, you know, a massive band like the Foo Fighters, right? You can guarantee that there are times when Dave Grohl is just pissed off and he's playing a gig to 70,000 people and he's not in a good mood. Like, how could you possibly be in any mood other than elated? But you can guarantee that happens.
Yeah, 100%.
Because if you can't find the place of gratitude with what you have now, which is an endless endeavor, you know, it comes and it goes. You go, oh, no, come back. It's actually pretty good. You know, we're sitting here doing a podcast in air-conditioned rooms. Fuck, man, what have we got to complain about?
Yeah.
It's much more elusive than it seems.
But it's a practice.
Yeah.
Like anything, it's a practice. And, you know, we spoke about before offline about breath work. That's how we originally connected. I was consuming some of your content. It's something I'm very interested in and have very strong beliefs around. But one thing I will say, which I'd love to get your take on this, I'm kind of in a space, and off the back of some really cool conversations in my break, breath work, meditation, gratitude, all of these things I've really placed on a pedestal at the moment because they're trendy, because it's cool, and because people are making money off it, right? And I'm not throwing everyone in that bucket, but it's become this mystical practice that's like seen as this crazy thing. It's like we breathe. Sitting down and, you know, taking a moment to just be very calm and relaxed and think or don't think, that's not untangible for anyone. Right. And to think about like practicing gratitude, just sitting there and going, I reflect on one moment. I recently did that Gladiators show, right? And I was on there, and about halfway through my own self-awareness, I walked in and I was just like, oh shit, it's happened. I was just like, this is nothing, this is normal. No, shut up. You're on Gladiators. Like, this is epic. How did that just become like some normal thing now that I'm doing? Because I'm like 14 days in. So I went in there at about 6:30 a.m., went into the arena by myself, and I was like, fucking pinch yourself, sort your shit out. Like, take a moment and be like, no, this is awesome. Like, how did that just become normalized? And that easily happens because it's our own reference point. You use the example of the Foo Fighters. Like, we'd be like, in what world could you ever be complacent and not be like, oh my God, but that's just what happens. So it's something that needs to be practiced. And all of those things that I mentioned, they don't need to be glorified as some mystical thing. It's stuff that is very achievable and that we all just need to have awareness of and incorporate into our lives.
Yeah, it is. It's funny how things like meditation, breathwork, cold plunge, fasting, these things are, they're trendy now, right? But there's also like a bunch of people who like to shit on people who are into that stuff. And I kind of think about that, and it's a funny one because, I get it. It's there are things, anything can be taken advantage of when it's too trendy.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, as you said, these are simple practices, and I can't really get on board with people who shit on those things just because I'm like, look, these things are still hard, and they're fundamental kind of primal things that you ought to be doing. If you want to make yourself, if you want to have a better life, you ought to try these things consistently.
Bro, this is an interesting topic because, and without naming names, I have a big problem personally with people who have this fear-based content and, you know, they're calling other people out and they're shitting on people for doing fast. And like, first of all, who gives a shit? I will say that if that could be directed to people who are taking advantage of fasting and over-educating or instilling, you know, fake perceptions of what it is for a financial gain. I get it. but do that some other way. I really do not connect with people on social media calling other people out, doing this and that, because, bro, that you want to talk about engagement, like that stuff hits. Yeah. They get massive engagement and their social media grows and all of that other stuff. But I can't connect with that. I wouldn't sit well with me. I just think there's another way to do it, to educate on those opinions and beliefs. So,
but it's a fast track.
It's something that really irks me, right?
Well, I know I'm with you, man. But it's like that you think about from those kind of that kind of content, that people making that content, from there to their defense, which I'm not really trying to defend them.
Yeah, but there is.
But their defense is there's a lot going on and there's a lot of content out there and they're trying to make noise. It's low vibe, don't get me wrong, because it's fear, right? But you're right, it comes up in people's feed because it is inflammatory and it's more interesting than the simplicity of, if you hop into a big tub of water with ice in it and do that for 2 minutes every morning, you will be a healthier human being. That's not very interesting anymore. You know, whereas if, here's why here's why everything you're doing is wrong. It's I get why they're doing it, but it's like,
so do I.
It's selfish.
I'm happy to see it for what it is and hold no judgment. Even like, hey, if it's a business thing, like, I get it, but I just don't like it. I don't agree with it.
And that's exactly the point. You know, so the people who are there's people who are too lazy to try it, so they're like, good, I don't have to do it. Fuck all those people doing that stuff. I knew it was bullshit. And then there's the people who are actually making the effort to do something that's hard. I go, hang on, dickhead, that's not true. And then it's engagement. It's all engagement, you know. But it's I'm with you, man. It's tricky. It's tricky to try and make some noise and be seen and heard in this mess of a digital world.
Yeah, it is. And look, you won't get the initial reach or the exposure, but
no.
I just have this gut feeling, and I favour a gut feeling that an authentic approach, true to the values that we both hold, long term, maybe it's a long term play, but long term will hold me in good stead for what I said is that outcome. So that's the path I'm choosing.
I'm with you, man. And even just on not that I'm much of a Buddhist, but even just karmically, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like there's something that, even doing this podcast, for instance, I make the reels, the little clips, like a minute or less, to put on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok so that I can promote the podcast, you know? And there are these AI softwares that can just make a clip for you in no time. But it's tempting to use those because it takes me ages to do it.
Of course.
It's the most work out of all of it. I've got to do the friggin' captions because no one can listen to anything anymore. So I've got to make, get the captions right. And it's, change the format, all this crap. It's a pain in the ass. But it's also a labour of love, because I think what part of this podcast that you and I are having, this discussion, do I find meaningful that I want to share with the world that I think represents you and your message, rather than what some AI software is going to class as the most viral content.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Which, again, it's tempting because I want people to see the podcast. But even now, I put clips up and people get really pissed off at certain things because, like, I had this one chick saying, she was really pissed off about something that I'd put up, and then I explained to her, well, later in the conversation we actually go on to say this, this and this, and she goes, oh, well, good on you taking things out of context just to try and get clicks. And I was like, well, you're welcome to listen to the whole conversation. I mean, do you know any other ways to promote a podcast? What do you want me to do here? This is why I'm putting it out there, because I'm trying to share with you an interesting 3-hour conversation,
Yeah, exactly.
There's
I'm
only
trying
so
to
much
provide
I
you
can
with a
do.
highlight reel so it entices you to listen to the conversation.
Yeah. Man, coming back to psychedelics, I was just thinking before, like, after you've done it, clearly you've done it in a almost, ceremonial, intentional environment, right?
Yeah.
After doing that, and listening to the way you speak about it, it's exactly the same way I speak about it. It's nothing but humility and respect for the experience and gratitude for the experience, because it kind of shows you yourself whether you're ready for that or not. What do you think about when you either hear of or come across someone at a friggin' rave or a party or a festival who's just like popping a bunch of mushrooms or something. I'm always like, dude, all the best. That's a great way to break your mind. That is to be around strangers, in an unsafe, emotional and physical environment. All the best.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've never had a bad relationship with psychedelics or anything like that, and always been able to maintain control. I haven't had issues with addiction, gratefully, but of course, I've had the parties and done all the stuff, but it really shifted when I took an approach that was a lot more mindful, and you used the term ceremonial. It really shifted my perspective, and not only that, but my understanding and want of how I can use these things and how I can harness them. And one way would be I can enhance a party, but after experiencing what I have, I really class them as something that's very powerful, very important, very spiritual, and they will always play a very different role in my life. Again, that comes with experience and understanding and awareness and the way I choose to perceive these things. But I definitely feel you on that. I look at it very differently.
Well, and I think it's just because they happen to legally be in the same category as party drugs. Same as Coke and MDMA and pills and all that kind of stuff. It's in the same classification, if not even worse. I think they might even be more strict on psychedelics, which is just nonsense. It's just completely uninformed. It's just not the way it is.
No.
As someone who's done my fair share of partying, and I'm like you, I don't have an addictive personality. I can take it or leave it. I'm pretty responsible with it, considering, but being in the entertainment industry, there's just cocaine everywhere. I don't know. Your industry's probably pretty similar, but it's like, it's not remotely close to being the same thing. Psychedelics and things like cocaine, I mean, you're fucking kidding me. They are drastically polar opposites. One of them, like alcohol, that's why, alcohol and cocaine go so well together, because they just enhance your ego and kind of, they kind of squash your impulse control and your ability to really see yourself. Whereas, things like even cannabis and mushrooms and psychedelics do the opposite. They make you hyper aware of yourself. I think that's why people have issues with anxiety when they get too stoned, because you become like, oh shit, what am I doing? Everyone's looking at me. What's going on? You become, no one says that when they're too drunk and have had a few rails. It's the complete opposite. They're just making a complete cock of themselves because they don't care.
It's true, but it's nice to see a big shift in terms of the education and the application. It's obviously international and with the likes of America, but it clearly is a movement that is gaining some traction in terms of the application of all these different psychedelics and how they can really help people in a very controlled way, utilised for a deeper purpose. So that's pretty cool. I don't think we're far away from it being acknowledged and separated, like you said, from the party scene.
Yeah. And look, and even if it is still far away, you can't stop people from doing what they want to do with their own minds and with their own experience. And look, just as a side note, I get it. People, sometimes people need to party. They need to let loose. They need to switch off. And alcohol and all the things that come with it is actually a really great way to do that. So look, no hate on those people, but it's just, that's a very different thing to tuning into yourself through, any kind of psychedelics or cannabis or anything like that. Completely different thing that should not be in the same
And bro,
basket.
they say ignorance is bliss, which, I have a big problem with, but I get it. I get the saying and I get the meaning behind it. But I will say, of late, probably the last 12-month journey, and I've been in a space where very high work capacity, big output, very productive, very focused on what I've been doing. The awareness that I've built of and I love a good time just like anyone, but being in that space, being in that scene, around that energy, alcohol, it's like it's just not where it just doesn't serve me anymore, And it's a weird thing to say. I'm not trying to put it in a bucket or put anyone else, but just like right now where I'm at, when say on the holidays and I've had a drink, I'm just like, it just doesn't sit well with me. So that's that's kind of a new journey that I'm on, where I don't have the same wants and needs around partying, around alcohol and things like that, but it's more so just like I'm very conscious and ruthlessly trying to protect the way I feel and what I'm able to do. And all of those things, unfortunately, are a distraction for that.
Yeah, you're right. And well, aside from the fact that, I don't know about you, but man, a hangover lasts me like 2 days now. Like I got the flu when I've got a hangover. I'm crook. You know, I used to really be able to bounce back. Now I just can't do it, no matter how healthy I'm being.
Yeah.
But also it's a tricky thing to confess something like what you've just said, because something like alcohol in our culture that we live in is so celebrated and encouraged, and you're a minority if you come out and say this kind of thing, like, you know what, I don't really want to have a bunch of drinks. Like it's easy. It's common for people to go, oh, what's wrong with you, dickhead? You know, like that kind of almost high school shit. It's a tricky thing to just go, look, it genuinely doesn't give me the same joy that it used to give me. Like it did when I was 20. I had a great time. I spent a good couple of years where I was drunk every single week, you know, but like now it just doesn't hit the spot, man. So I totally get where you're at, especially, you know, I'm in a situation where I have a tiny little person who wakes me up all hours of the evening. So, you know, I need to be able to to function through that. So there's no way I'm going to jeopardize the little sleep that I do get through getting boozed. But yeah, it is a tricky thing in our culture because it's so openly celebrated.
Yeah. And I, you know, again, seeing between the lines, I get it and don't really have any opinions of what other people do. It's more so like it's a very social thing, you know, and as you said, it's just a part of our culture. But for me right now and what I'm doing, it just doesn't serve me. And I know that a lot of people wouldn't be able to relate to that or the situation I'm in, but yeah, I'm not willing to sacrifice. Like I'm so focused on I think it's I talk about reference points. When you experience something, you go through something, you've got a new reference point. And the reference point of where I'm at based on the work that I've done and the awareness that I have of feeling a certain way, when I've gone to here, going back down really hits you hard and it's very confronting and it's very noticeable. So I feel like that's the big gap that's been put in between that, whereas I don't think that gap was as big. So now I'm functioning at this level and of health and awareness and things that are really important to me. It's just a huge gap between feeling like that and feeling like this, and it's just not something I'm willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, I get that. Well, one of the things that kind of reminds me of is, and sorry to keep bringing everything back to mushrooms, but you know, obviously had a big impact on me. The thing that this theory I have on something like mushrooms is you pay your dues up front, right? Anyone who's done it knows exactly what that means, but I'll describe it for someone who hasn't done them. You eat the mushroom or you drink the tea or whatever, however you do it, and then you slowly but surely start to feel uncomfortable. Physically, you start to feel sick. Mentally, emotionally, you start to feel confused, and it's like this process of you trying to hang on to your normal state of consciousness and awareness and then dipping into being a lot more psychedelic, and then you physically feel unwell, and it's just yuck. You know, that come up is not a nice experience at all, really, to the point where, I don't know about you, but I quite often feel like I'm going to vomit. I never have. But it's always like, oh man, this, and I have these moments of regret, like, fuck, I shouldn't have done this. This is, and then you break through, and you get to this euphoric place of whatever the journey's going to be for you, and it's, and then you are slowly kind of drifted back down to reality over 5-6 hours, and then you're fine.
Yeah.
The worst, there's no hangover. You're just tired. Whereas the other way is you pay your dues later. You take some pills or you do a bunch of shots. You're fine at the moment. There's nothing wrong. You just wait for it to feel good. But then you pay for it after. You know, the next day you're hungover, you've been poisoned. You're like, I'm in the bath at 3 in the afternoon. I'm not taking any phone calls. I'm just cooked. Yeah. Right? So like you pay your dues later. But the analogy to that is the things that outside of like psychedelics and drugs and alcohol, they all lean more towards the mushroom side of things. Working out, for instance, doing cardio, It's fucking hard as you're doing it. You pay your dues up front. You're getting pummeled. You're sweating. You can't breathe. Your heart rate's going crazy. Your muscles are all burnt. It's awful. Cardio, I hate cardio. I've always hated it, and I still hate it, but I love it. I love what it does for me in my life. And I've only just discovered that recently, bro. Like I've only,
Oh yeah,
yeah. I've always avoided it. I played soccer in school, which is hectic cardio, but beyond that, I've always just shunned it. But recently, I started doing Muay Thai training, and the kickboxing stuff, and it's all cardio, man. It's amazing, the conditioning and the way that it makes me feel about my life after the workout and the subsequent hours and days after that workout is amazing. You pay your dues up front. You know, it's like a lot of those things. You do the ice bath. You pay your dues in the moment. It's fucking awful. It's awful. You know, you get used to it and you get good at it. You might put on a brave face and you're like conditioned to it, but it doesn't mean it's not shit. And then once you're out, then you feel good again. So it's just a concept that I've observed this like.
No, I like that. I haven't heard that, the pay your dues up front. I like that. It's a good concept.
Well, I think it's the unearned or earned pleasure. You know, if you embark upon journeys of unearned pleasure, like snorting something or drinking something, then you will pay for it later. But if you earn your pleasure, like doing an ice bath or something of that nature, like doing a big workout and building your body to be strong, you get the pleasure from that. You've earned it. You've had to go through a rite of passage in order to get that pleasure. I haven't really refined that enough. I could probably turn that spiel into something a bit under 9 minutes, but, you know, you get the idea.
No, I really like it. I was going to ask you, and we use that example of late, your journey around Muay Thai and cardio and conditioning. I just wanted to get an insight into, like, you've obviously, I would say it must be through some content and some education you've consumed. Like everyone else, let's be honest, it's quite a trending philosophy and concept that if we actually do hard things, our life's probably going to be a little bit easier. And facing discomfort, or even just literally, like I'm at the point now where the moment I have a thought about, I don't want to do that, the next thought is, okay, I'm going to have to do that because I didn't want to do it. Yeah. And like, again, this is this awareness thing with like the responsibility, but that's just now how my mind works. And I love it, but it's a constant challenge. But where else would you rather be? I wanted to know, when that triggered for you, and then how do you feel that applies to when you are training? Because no doubt through these Muay Thai sessions, even more so in the earlier events, there would have been some head noise and some moments where you had to make some choices that were definitely going against that little voice in your head.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think I love that philosophy, by the way. I have moments of that, actually, with that thing of like, I really don't want to do this. Oh, fuck, that means I have to. Yeah. The cold plunge, and I haven't been doing a cold plunge lately because I've actually turned my cold plunge into my little girl's ball pit so that she can play in there, which is a great excuse for me not to do it. But
it is.
But the cold plunge is definitely the one, like, I don't want to do this. You have to do it.
Bro, every day I get up and have a cold shower. And I did it yesterday and I was like, oh, maybe it wasn't that bad. But that's funny. That's like a true reflection of the brain. Like every day I get up and I look at it and I'm like, don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you, man. To answer the question, before I became a dad, I would have more of that discipline towards things that I was good at. So for instance, I'm a very creative person, which is wonderful and exciting, but it's also probably a huge pain in the ass to be around. My wife is very tolerant of that. She's pretty creative too, so I think she kind of gets it. Yeah. But I tend to move very laterally. I have a hard time following through with something. So when so for instance, I wrote a movie script that I'm working on getting up, and hopefully we can shoot that this year. That's the plan of, the cogs are moving, deal with that when it happens. But that was something that's a lot of work, where I'm at 113 pages of the ninth draft or whatever I'm at. That's a lot of work, but it's something that has come. I am a creative person, so I'm able to sit down. It's not too much of a chore. But since becoming a dad, there are so many things that I personally have been confronted with that I that the little boy in me doesn't want to do. I don't want to get out of bed. It's 3 a.m. I'm tired. I don't want it. But there's no way I'm going to let that voice overrule Mark, the man who is the father of a little girl who needs me, or the husband to a wife who's just as more exhausted than I am. So you just do it. I've had to overcome it, and that I'm doing my best to harness that lesson that has been taught to me, beaten me over the head since becoming a dad, and putting that into more aspects of my life. And I think that's why I've started doing the Muay Thai and the cardio training, which is something I've always put off my whole life until, becoming a dad. So that's the answer. There's been, for me, it's been such a journey of maturation and just kind of silencing that juvenile little boy in me that needs to go, you are a 37-year-old man now with a real child in your life. The child inside needs to, he doesn't win anymore. He doesn't get to call the shots.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
I just found like,
how about you, man? You've obviously got a better drive in that sense than I have. You know, you don't maintain a physique like you do, and you don't make the business choices that you make without having that already there. What is it for you?
Well, I think, it's been ingrained in me for a long time. You know, going back, and I speak about a couple of events that this is just my own reflection and how I interpret it. But, you know, obviously I had a single mum, so I didn't know my dad, but my mum was like, she loves footy more than I do. It's like she was my first coach when I was 3-4 years old. And where did you grow up? Oh, no, you grew up in Orange, yeah?
Yeah, Central West.
So I grew up in like Woolloomooloo, not when it was a nice area, which is like just underneath King's Cross. I'm sure you know where it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, at the age of like just very independent, different life, at the age of like 7, I would catch a bus and a train. I'd walk up to King's Cross and like I'm in year 1. Like it's wild to think about now. But mum would just push me and into all these sports, and I wasn't like the most skilled or talented person, but I just understood. I'm starting to figure out, work ethic and discipline and commitment I must have obviously perceived that this is being glorified. Like this is something that people see as very appealing. And so I think I just continued to lean into that, and that's all I knew. And I think it comes with its downfalls, because I do think at times you create it becomes a badge of honor. I work really hard, and that can almost, it's a good thing, but it can become like an excuse. You know what I mean? And it's a kind of a weird double-edged sword, but I think just understanding, like I've been making much harder choices than most for a long time. So I just feel like that's ingrained in me, but then I also saw the value of it. But I don't know when it was, even little things like I won't say I'm busy. Like it's just a shit thing to say, you know. So I'm busy. It's just it's a very negative thing to say. So I'm like, I'm not saying it. The other time I say this when I'm having these conversations all the time, I go to say I'm very lucky, and I'm like, don't say lucky. Like again, bad word, bad choice of word. Like I'm grateful. Right, lucky is definitely does not describe what I'm talking about.
Lucky's just missing getting hit by a bus. You know, it's not.
Luck is by chance. This shit ain't by chance, right?
Yeah.
Now, because I've got the awareness and I'm starting to practice these things, I'm just very mindful of the things that I say, and because just those words alone can have a huge impact on your mindset and your perception. As we know, perception is our reality. So it's like you just got to be very mindful of the things that you say, the conversations that you're having. You know, when someone asks you about a situation, are you telling this story of negativity and sorrow? And I'm not saying that there's not an emotional response or something you need to go through in these situations, but ultimately there's a choice that needs to be made as you move on from this. And what's it going to be? It's the red pill, blue pill. It's literally a 50-50. And I'm going to choose to find some sort of optimistic perspective and set some goals and work my way out of this. And that's the choice that I make mentally. So I think it's just being very aware of the things that you say and do, but to the point where it doesn't have to just be something hard like training. You know, if I don't want to have a conversation with someone, but I know I should, I'm instantly like, okay, I've got to do that. If I say something to someone and I know it's not the truth or something, anything that makes me uncomfortable, just alone, you lean into that and watch the profound impact it has on the rest of your life, guaranteed.
That's a great nugget of wisdom, that is, man. And again, that's one of those ones it's really simple. It's just hard. Yeah. It's just hard to do. Like that for me, that again, that's one of the ones that I've only just really been able to embrace is the being more assertive, having the difficult conversation, standing up for myself.
It's a great journey, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're totally right. It's paying your dues up front. I don't want to have this conversation. I'm just going to put it off. And you think, oh, cool, I've gotten out of it. I didn't have it. But you don't realise that that makes your life shitter. Whereas if you go, I'm just going to have the conversation, get on the phone, get into the room, whatever it is, and do it, it's icky, but then it's done.
Yeah, but nothing bad comes from that. Like it's just
other than the experience of being uncomfortable.
Yeah, one thing I took away from this the other day, and it's very prominent in my setting, but like the other perspective of it is, if you don't have that conversation, let's say someone is doing something that bothers you, or they're not doing something to standard, whatever it may be. You may think by avoiding this, or I don't want to hurt the person's feeling, but in reality, if that person never knows, how can they change? That for me was a big penny drop, and I was like, oh, I'm actually doing myself and this person a disservice. I haven't even given them an opportunity to change because I haven't told them. Yeah. So who am I to sit here and say this annoys me, that's a problem? Well, hang on. You got to you've got to communicate with the person and give them an opportunity to change. You haven't even allowed for that to be an option. So that was just a little thing that really changed my perspective of late.
But I think that if you are coming at it with that internal dialogue, you're already aware that you're not going to be a dick about it, because there are a lot of people who will constantly tell people where they need to change, but they're an asshole. You know, because it's not actually about trying to help the other person. It's about asserting dominance, or, whatever the hell their ego trip is. Yeah. But there's a difference between, if you've had that dialogue with yourself, well, you're clearly not going to be a dick about it, because you are aware that that would make you feel, because you're obviously coming from a place of going, if someone had said this to me, I'd want to know. I'd want someone to say this to me so I can go, oh shit, I didn't know that. Now that you've told me, cool, stings a bit, but you're not wrong. So I'd better get on it.
Yeah. And then it's your opportunity. Like now the ball's in your court. That weight is off my shoulders. And unfortunately, I can't control what your reaction will be. I will hope that it will be met with discussion and an open mind, but it might not be. And if that's the case, that's on you. I'm not going to carry that burden, and it will be unfortunate, because I'd like the later, but that is going to cause a disconnect, and it's definitely going to break the trust for me to be willing to do that again. So even personally, we've got to be very mindful of those opportunities. It's almost like I feel I've had these conversations lately, and I use the word strategy because it is strategic, but I don't want that to seem like it's disingenuous, because it's not. But I've just identified these things that are really important, whether it be from a mindset perspective or communication, that strategically I'm implementing into my life. So like these strategies that we're talking about, like I can tell you right now that you have a very small window where if you want to give feedback and take feedback, you need to be very aware of the fact that in that moment that you receive feedback that you asked for, that you said you were open to, you need to meet it with discussion and an open mind, even if it stings, even if it's uncomfortable, because in that moment, that is your chance to build trust and credibility that you can have these conversations. And they're very important, because it leads to a whole heap of good shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it does.
Now, you just have to be mindful, because a lot of people won't see it for that, and they will be triggered, and they will be responsive. And, then it'll be a conversation of forgiveness and trying to rebuild that trust and credibility, which is hard to earn back. So just that, and I put them in the bucket of these little strategies. But if you understand these things around like human behavior and communication, it can have a big impact, and it really is a positive one, especially when you are working in a team or around people who are chasing goals and trying to achieve different things.
Yeah, you're dead right, man. That's I was just thinking about how you've come, wondering how you've come to these epiphanies, because this is good stuff, man. Like I just as a side note, this is a podcast that I put out to the world, but to be honest, it's really an excuse for me to learn more about myself every time I do one of these. I love it too. I come on, I'm like, oh man, he's got some good stuff there. And then but anyway, I was thinking about how, you're saying you grew up with just a single mum, and was thinking about how you've come to this kind of place of assertiveness and hard work from a young age. And one of the things that I've learned in my parenting journey is it's the simplest way to put it is you have to teach kids do as I do, not do as I say. And even if your mum was the laziest mum of all time, she would still be working harder than most people because she's a single mum. And I'm not in any way saying that your mum was lazy. It's like, so you as a little boy, have you got siblings?
Yeah, little brother.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, okay, so she's got 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
So you 2 little dudes just around this adult woman who is taking charge of her life and the world and her parenting journey as well as she possibly knew how. That's just like the way you behave for you guys. So like that makes perfect sense as to why you kind of see. I came from a very different background. My parents are still together, and my dad is a retired dentist. So like he sent me to a private school. Never was wanting for anything, and I'm super grateful for it. But it's been a very privileged, comfortable life, and I'm. Well, I don't know if that is luck, but, I didn't choose to be born into that family, so that turned out pretty good for me, But it's only as I've become an older that I've had to learn some of these hardships on my own when I've, flown the coop and had to go, I need to take care of myself. How do I do that? And I would say that I definitely have learned that much later than you did. You watched your mum handle her shit on her own, as well as taking care of you lads. So that was just what I was thinking about your situation,
Yeah, and again, it's funny. Like, we are a product of our environment. I talk about this all the time with Airlocker. I want it to be that space where you can come, you can feel safe, you can. I'm bigger, and I think this was probably another reflection from a psychedelic experience, but go with me on this.
They're profound,
where it went to was like, we all started as one cell. Like, that's where this one went.
Okay.
That's the facts. We all started as one cell. And like,
this was the epiphany that came to you in the journey.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
So
you just went back to the beginning of all creation. Cool.
Yeah. Exactly.
Simple, easy. What of it? Wrap your head around that.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I was like, well, we are all the same.
Yeah.
In essence, right? We are all the same. We are all one. So I just truly believe, because I love the question of like, what is the meaning of life? I think it's so cool and you can go down so many tangents. But for me, and I discovered this through some experiences with very close people, my partner, who's an amazing woman, and also my best friend. And I hold massive value and weight in those relationships because I just feel like, how good is this that, firstly, I will allude to the best mate. I've found this like double of me who is aligned, who you feel like just that feeling of, I would be happy to put my life in your hands. Like that, it's just that level of trust. And I'm like, what's better than that? What is better than that? Like, that's living. You now have this feeling in life where you could do anything and you always have someone's always got your back. So like, there's something innately a part of us where we need that.
Yeah,
we're very tribal, but we need that. And then it was obviously the reflection with my partner who, my own personal journey with through women and my own ego. That's a whole nother one. But this is a new experience for me, but finding someone who I connect with, the feminine to the masculine, and just that's a whole different experience as well. And what these two people have allowed me to do, I feel, have given me this space where they're not only encouraging, they're not only supportive, you have that deep, deep understanding of the loyalty, but you feel like you can be a true expression of yourself. Now, for me, going back to the one cell and who we all are, I think the meaning of life is, or the journey that we are on, is to express our true self. The world around us is doing everything in its power to take us away from that, if you think about it. If it's not what we're worried about, what people think, it's us trying, like, what is a career? this gets real weird. Like, what is a career? Yeah. What is air locker training? What is acting? Like, it's wild when you think about it in that concept. These are all these mirrors of things that people think are great and influential and all this stuff. But, like, the journey is, like, who really am I? Who is that true expression of myself? And how close, or can I get to a point where that's how I live and that's what I'm expressing? And you can think of a million examples that slowly push us away from allowing us to do that and be that. And it was just this profound understanding that, like, finding these people who I think is the most beautiful thing ever, like, that's living to me, actually are the keys to unlock me being allowed to be the true expression of myself. And I was like, I think that's the meaning of life, to return to yourself.
Woo!
So there's one for you.
Wow. Fuck, that's a doozy, man. That's a doozy.
That was a wild one. I was like, oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That it's I get it. I've been in places like that where where in the system that we live in our society, is that kind of behavior and thought pattern encouraged? No, not even at church.
Not even encouraged, just spoken about.
Yeah. It's not. It's just, it's like that is, have you ever listened to a guy named Ram Dass?
I think I have.
Yeah, so he wrote a book. He was one of the few guys at the I think it was the 60s or the 70s at the kind of forefront of, like, the psychedelic kind of renaissance of that time, and he wrote a book called Be Here Now, and you should get it, man. If I can find a copy, I'll send it to you, because it's amazing. It's all like drawings and all this just super trippy wisdom, and he found himself in a position where he found that his calling after doing all this psychedelics was to guide people into death. So he would work with people who were dying.
Wow.
And yeah, basically guide them into the next place. And the wisdom and knowledge that he learned in order to get himself into that place, and then from being in that place, man, some of the talks that he does, he would do these lectures. He's passed now, I believe, but one of the things that he said that really stuck with me was, when you look at someone, no matter how different they are to you, he's like, I get to this point where I think, wow, how did you get in there? Look at me, I'm in this one, but how did you get in that one? I wonder what that experience has been like for you, because he's saying the same thing. We're from the same source. It's just so happened that my bit of source is in this body and yours is in that one. And I wonder how'd you get in there, you know? Yeah. And it's kind of like where
but
you're
bro, it's true.
From.
Like right now we stand here, and, like, if you want to go scientific, like physiologically, technically, bar the genetics, like, we are the same and we do come from the same place, but there's no way me and you are going to be the same, and there's no way whatever that true expression of myself I am going to be able to express. All you have to do is look at my journey. From 0 to 7, I didn't have a choice of what I did, what information I consumed, who I was surrounded by, what I experienced. So straight off the bat, there's that.
Yeah.
And then the next portion is you just trying to figure some of that shit out and make your way through life. And now we're at a point where it's like, okay, now I understand this stuff. Let's reflect and let's try and understand. And that's just the way it is.
If you're lucky, you get to that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So that's just the way it is. But it's a crazy concept, but it makes sense. And I don't know, man. I think about, things get thrown in that conspiracy theory bucket, but if you look at it for what it is, without going too deep down the rabbit hole, if you think about the hierarchy that is the life that we live in, whether it be politics, whether it be control, whether it be power, and it doesn't take an idiot, like it's simple to understand that these things are real and they do massively impact the world around us. But if everyone thought the way that we were talking about, it'd be a big problem for those entities. A big problem.
It'd be, yeah.
So in that respect, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That was it. That was the first epiphany that I had when I first did psychedelics. I remember standing. I was living in LA at the time. I was standing on this big rock overlooking the city, and the sun was setting. And I remember thinking there was a helicopter there, and I was thinking, man, look at all this crap we've built. Look at all this stuff that we've put on here, and that kind of brought me to this epiphany of, like, this is all just a system that we've created and we go along with because we're taught to. But it just made me aware of my place in the world and the fact that I can observe this rather than just be of it and just blindly be. It's like when, okay, do you know what lucid dreaming is?
Yes.
Have you ever done it?
Yes.
Right. So the difference is when you are not lucid and you're dreaming, you are a passenger. You're basically watching a film, watching a story happen. When you become lucid, you are now the driver and you are able to change the course of the story. It's like that, but with real life.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of
and exactly right. That's what I was going to say. It gives you back control.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, it does. And that is terrifying.
You know what's tough, bro? Like, I've thought about this a lot this last year, and I made a choice to contextualize it and think about it a certain way. But there's been moments where, through the exact conversation we were just having, I've just thought, like, I could easily not be doing anything I'm doing, like, don't care. It's not because it's not important. It's like there's a whole nother conversation, bro, about like energy, if you understand that, and then it just gets real weird. Like we are all just energy, and what I see literally on this screen is just an expression of like this thing, and it just gets real weird. You know what I mean? Like this human body that we see is like this physical thing. It's not actually what it is. It's just that's the only way that we can contextualize it. But truly, down to the core, we are just energy, and all of this is just a reflection of that. But I was at a point where like I could easily not have any of this in my life, not be chasing any ambitions, any dreams. Like I could easily just be anywhere, doing anything, and just on this journey of self-discovery in life. Like I genuinely could do that, and I'd be really happy. But then I frame things a different way, because you with all this information, we spoke about power, responsibility, it comes this like, you don't put the same weight and value in all of these superficial things. And it's like, oh, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? And then, you know, time is of value. That's all that we have. And then I can imagine you're in this framework of employment, and it's like, what am I doing? Like, how have I fallen into this structure? What does this mean? What's the purpose behind it? And then, you know, I obviously got through that and have sort of had to reframe things, because that's a pretty tough mindset to have when you are trying to chase these certain aspirations or goals, as you can imagine, because it's a real shift in the opposite direction. But what I really was able to do, I was able to compartmentalize it and look at it for, well, what would be important? You know, me taking everything that I know, all of this knowledge that I have from my own personal experience, and that I'm very passionate about the fact that anyone could adopt this and make these changes in their life. Well, what a disservice it would be if I went down that path and seen no value in anything. So I decided to look at things through a different lens and see everything as an opportunity. Now, these things that I don't align with, or I might understand that they're this framework that comes from a reality that's been built around us, but okay, I'm the player in the game, and this is how I'm going to choose to play it. And I just seen that I want to make an impact, and I want to make this change. So, brother, you got to play the game. So have the awareness, have the control over what is real, what is not, and what serves you and what doesn't, but choose a path where you understand that at scale you have a real big opportunity to take advantage of your mind and your passions for making a change in other people, and this is the path you need to go down. You just can't see it as something that's fake and unrealistic and superficial and all of this stuff. You need to reframe that conversation with yourself and see it as this opportunity to make an impact. And there's this one other thing that comes down to a word that I think about, which is legacy. And I never connected with legacy. And it was like someone said to me that, my understanding of legacy was like, it was like an egotistical thing. It's like, I want to leave a legacy behind for I just never really connected with that frame. But it was when someone said to me that legacy is what you leave, not what you leave behind, it's what you leave in other people. And I was like, oh, that's just reframe legacy for me. And it's not about, I don't want people to remember me for this or for that, but my legacy is what impact or what did I leave behind in other people. And I think that's a beautiful approach and perspective to have on legacy. And that was the way that I was able to reframe what was a profound understanding and, I suppose, deeper perspective on the world around me and the pitfalls and unfortunate frameworks that we've been constructed in, and just be able to apply it and say, hang on, there's an opportunity here, and this is the game. I can't change it, but this is what I can control, and this is the way I'm going to choose to think about it. And I think it was a good decision.
Yeah, man. It's what you're describing is sounds like dipping your toes into the quicksand that is nihilism, which I've done in my past as well. And I think it's probably the root place of where a lot of depression and a lot of mental health issues sit.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And it's dark, man. It's really dark because when you start, well, we've all started, but when you perpetuate that thought pattern of what's the point? There's no point, nothing means anything, it can be tricky to get out of that. And it's cool to hear, it's probably not the best word, but let's run with it. It's cool to hear that you decided to just go, well, this is the game that I'm playing, and the only out is to stop playing. So why don't I just play? And like I sometimes think about those, you hear about these super, I think here in the Western world, we're very much into the material world, and there's there's nowhere near enough connection to spirit and soul, which I think is the stuff that we're talking about, the essence, whatever our life force is that's animating this meat suit. But you hear about people that on the other end of the spectrum, and these people that legitimately spend years in meditation. They're in a cave or wherever they are in a monastery, and they're legitimately inward and meditating for years. And there's part of me that thinks, wow, I'm super intrigued about what state of consciousness they're finding, and where are they? What are the? You hear these words like samadhi and nirvana and bliss and these states. I don't even really know what they mean. But then the other part of me thinks, well, I kind of feel like that's where you go next. I don't think that this, whatever our consciousness is, just ends when we die. That's my opinion. I don't think that there's an on and an off button. I think it morphs into something else. Yeah,
no, there's definitely something to that. Like you, I don't understand it, or it's not something I can see, but I certainly have a belief around it. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that perspective alone, because I think about often the balance of extremes, which was a concept that was brought to me, which I really love. And it was in a conversation of resilience. Because balance for me was a big word. Probably about a year or two ago, I was like, balance, I need balance, But it's just everything is the way you want to perceive it. So like the balance of extremes is a concept that by living, there's no free lunches, right? What goes up must come down. So there's hydrated, not hydrated. There's sleep, there's awake. There's light. Where there's light, there's dark. But by finding comfort in being able to be at the extremes of everything creates a balance where you don't play in the middle ground and you don't have any resilience or fortitude to go to these places. So for myself, who's had constant exposure and built resilience in the extremes of everything, I bring balance. And what you actually want to do is you want to be able to have the fluidity and the flexibility to move between the extremes of anything in life and adapt, be resilient, and be composed. So that is actually something we should strive for rather than the concept which is balance as we know it.
Wow, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. So essentially, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's saying that if you are too balanced, if you have too much balance, you don't have resilience. You are fragile.
Think about this, what you just spoke about. So like if I'm at work, right, and I'm squeezing a lemon, neglect my wife, neglect my kid, working overtime, stressed as all hell, problem. But guess what? Being a monk and meditating all day, I ain't getting shit done. That's a problem, right? But both of those extremes have value.
Yes.
It's my ability to balance and go through the extremes, which is the place where I want to be. And being able to have exposure and balance those two extremes is actually where I find balance. So be extreme to be balanced is the concept.
Wow. I like that, man. I'm going to do some more digging into that. That's quite fascinating.
I really connected with that when it was presented to me.
Is that a Stoic teaching?
I mean, it's got a Stoic nature about it. And hey, you're not going to do yourself any harm applying a lot of the Stoic mentalities to your life. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, absolutely. Especially just being a man in general, but also
I have this necklace is it says Amor Fati on it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you know Amor Fati, but on this necklace, it's bloody too small to read, I think. It says not merely to bear what is necessary, but to love it. And that kind of goes back to the original concept that like you have to, there's opportunity and greatness in all things. Yeah. So like you have to, it's a lover of fate. That's what it is. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nice. That's cool. I like that, dude. Good for you for wearing that. That's a good reminder of embracing that responsibility, because it's
and brother, it's one thing to hear, but then it's like we said, it only has to make sense to me. And when we gave that breakdown before of like, all right, I'll reflect on all the negative or bad things that have happened. Yeah. But then how can any of those things be negative or bad because this happened? Yeah. So now, like, I embrace challenge and risk, knowing that nothing good will ever come if I don't put myself in those positions. And I do not fear failure because I know the two outcomes, win or learn. What is to fear? Yeah, maybe it's uncomfortable, but like, who gives a shit? It's more uncomfortable never going to those points and never facing those opportunities and never realizing your potential. That's more uncomfortable. That's like you said, that would be facing pain later. You know what I mean? That's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're not equipped. You don't have the strength.
Live a life of regret.
Yeah. Because if you pay the dues up front, you gain strength. If you don't pay your dues up front, there's no strength. It's just hitting you later. This is interesting. You know, you talk about how the negative things, the tough situations you've been through that have taught you so much. I think about like, I probably watch The Matrix every year, every 2 years, and it just becomes more and more of a documentary as life goes on.
Bro, have you seen the recent content about that?
No.
Have you seen the African American lady who wrote it? Oh, bros, you got a rabbit hole to go down. Cool. So she wrote Terminator and Matrix, and they're both the same. So really? Terminator is back in time. Yeah. Matrix is in the future. John Connor, JC, Jesus Christ, that's what she's describing it as. John Connor is Neo.
Right.
Right? The John Connor's mother, the guy who came from the future and then impregnated her with John Connor, that's the Immaculate Conception. Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Like, right, when she's explaining it, I was like, oh my God. It's like everything I knew just crumbled. I was like, oh my God, this lady is unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And she was explaining what the Matrix is and how the transition and the new world. And I was just like, oh, I would kill to talk to this woman.
Yeah, dude, send me a link to that. That's my before bed viewing tonight.
Mind blowing.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's like, I love it.
Matrix is AI, and she's written. When did she write this? Like what?
Well, yeah, because I know that
So that's where we're going, bros. It's like we're going into that digital world where I think the reflection is, well, I think we actually lose. We don't. What is reality and what is not? Like that's the pathway we're on.
Yeah. Well, it is, and that's really on a digital level of. Yeah, what we're manifest. Look at this right now. You and I, we're in completely different parts of the world, and we're having a very deep discussion. But even on, like, I think about the Matrix and kind of talking about what you were talking about before, when you observe the system that we live in, and you can put yourself out. First, you have to be able to put yourself outside of yourself and be able to observe yourself. And then you can observe the rest of the world. Like, for instance, if you can observe your emotional state, and instead of being angry, you can go, look at that anger. Look how angry I am feeling. I don't have to be it, but I can just observe it and go, that's like the first step. And then and then you can kind of apply that to the world and the systems that we live in and go, well, kind of like what you're talking about before, you can go into a really dark hole and go, well, it doesn't mean anything. Or you can go, now I'm equipped to play this game so much better. And do I choose to use my powers for good or for evil?
Yes.
And that's, again, that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
As a young man, it can be hard to figure out where you have to learn the hard way what the right thing to do is, hey? Like it's you are given opportunities and like a lot of stuff fell in my lap, as an actor and as a young dude from the country, I got given these acting roles, which was paying me lots of money and I didn't get myself into any trouble, but I certainly could have. I guess in that there must have been some guardian angels watching over me because I was just flying blind, man. I was just like fumbling through and happened to, not get myself into too much trouble if any. But like, where are you at with that? How you feel about the situations you found yourself in? Like, I know you got in a bit of strife with footy stuff. And it's like, I guess it's really interesting having this depth of conversation with you to go now like that, there's so many blessings in that. And it's funny I wonder how you feel looking back at that, this whole situation.
Well, let me summarize it for you with this statement. Think about the impact of it at the age, career, the public perception. I wouldn't take it back. 4 years out of the game, blah, 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 but I wouldn't take it back. There's just no way. Like, I know what it gave me. Like, I know who I became. I know what it exposed me to. Yeah. So I just couldn't take it back. As much as I'd love to, of course, imagine, like, what would have been and what would I have not had to go through, but wouldn't trade it. Like, I'm standing here as the man that I am today with the perspective and the values. It was based on an experience like that and what I was exposed to. And at a micro level, so many things come from that. Like, bro, I'm sure you were the same in the acting world, but like that was my persona. This is who I was. I was Sandor, Earl, the football player. And that's something I did. It's not the person that I am. And breaking away from that bubble and exposing myself to other people in different conversations and perspectives and really realizing how insignificant I really was and, traveling. And I was just like, that was a big step closer to me expressing the true version of me. So that's what that did. But so many lessons, and I could not take it back.
Yeah, I can't think of a healthier place for you to have come to, man. That's Good for you. And you know, you were saying earlier how you weren't really sure if that world was, you know, that's probably not the world where you belonged. Like firstly, how many of these kind of conversations did you want to have back then? And secondly, how many did you within that world? Like, is this a kind of a chat that you could have? Or was it just something you
I think definitely. I've always, again, going back to like, I'm not invincible or bulletproof. I'm human, but I understand the power of being resilient and having a certain presence and persona and personality. And I'm just willing, because of the sureness in who I am and who I want to be, I'm willing to take the bullet. I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to be honest and expose myself, because I'm not threatened or I don't fear how that may or may not be perceived. I'm confident in what I lead with, which is my heart and my values, which anyone would align to. And, you know, along the way, there's going to be people who have their opinions and whatever, and I don't discredit that, but I know that I'm coming from a genuine place, and I just continue to lead with that. But I also know along the journey, I'm willing to take the bullet. I'm willing to put myself in an uncomfortable situation. I'm willing to have an honest conversation, be transparent, be vulnerable, reveal my flaws, because someone perceives me to be greater than they are. They put me on a pedestal, and if I'm doing it, then I know sure as hell that it will give them a license to do it and empower them. So that's the impact they can have. And staying true to that is very powerful why, and it'll continue to motivate me to live my life that way.
Reminds me of that quote from Fight Club: losing all hope was freedom. You know?
Expectation is a killer, isn't it?
Yeah. And perhaps at the time when you got in a bit of strife and lost and had your dream or whatever, however you characterize the situation you were in, taken away, that would have been, I'm sure it was devastating, right? I mean, at the time it was probably like, oh God, my world's crumbled. But as you said, that the gift that was on the other side of the pain, like now you're exactly, I really like what you just said then, being in a position to be like, I'm actually, you know, I've been kicked out of this shit before. I've made decisions that got me in trouble, taken risks, and I'm out the other side. Like, you know, you're currently on a like a mainstream TV show, Gladiators, you know, and yet you're having this conversation with me right here, which is like power to you, man, because there's a game that you have to play. Well, you don't have to. Let me rephrase. There's a game that it feels as though people feel as that you are pressured to play. Yes, you're expected to play, to be a part of that mainstream world, whether that be professional sport, whether that be television, acting, reality stuff, whatever it is. You feel it the moment you kind of step through those imaginary doors, and I kind of resonate with what you were saying before, because I, for a while, worked really hard at being a part of that, you know, and I was doing Home and Away, and I was, you know, that was 4 years on that show, and that doesn't get any more mainstream. You know, there's no swearing on that show. Like you are in the box, you know, and even on that show, I started doing things. I had questions about the system that I was a part of, that I'd kind of unwittingly entered into, that I realised slowly but surely, probably a little later than I should have, these questions were not they were not accepted in that world. You know, like even something as simple as, right, I grew long sideburns when I was on the show because and Roman will remember this guy, Rob Romano, who was in our year at school, had he obviously went through puberty early because he had these epic sideburns down to here when we were in like year 9 or something. And I was like, man. And so I remember as soon as I was able to grow, so I was like, I'm going to grow some fucking sideburns. So I grew sideburns while I was on Home and Away, and the producers didn't want me to do it. And they even called me in and said, man, we need, and I was like, why? Why can I just not have sideburns? What I didn't realize was that decision shaped my career, because only later, now that I've, gone bald and shaved my head and the way you look and present is probably more important. Well, I think the most important thing in the entertainment industry is how famous you are. The second most important thing is how you look and present. It doesn't have to be beautiful, but it has to be right. And whoever decides what right is depends on, what network or what show you're going for. And then a very distant third is how talented you are. But that was one of the things that I actually shaped my career. And once you've stepped out of that and can see it, you were kind of forced out of it from a risky decision that you made that you don't have to comment on this if you don't want to, but I'm sure
I'm open book.
I was going to say, I'm sure you're not the only person who was making that decision. It just so happened you got a made example of. But, listening to Lance Armstrong's testimony, it's, he just happened to be the best at it. But anyway, once you've had that happen and you were kind of forced out, you can kind of see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, you got to a point where you're like, maybe this isn't as authentic as I'm not being my most authentic self.
Yeah, it's true. And I think, I'll use the word grateful, but I'm grateful that everything I do is just, it's just me. I am just being me. Like, I don't care whether it's at Air Locker, and I'm not stupid. I don't say, like, I know what's right and wrong, but also I'm willing to say the things, or I'm willing to be the person because I'm comfortable there. Like Sandor at Air Locker, whoever this person is, it's just Sandor. They're being him. Phoenix it's just Sandor, to be honest. Like, I'm just talking shit, bit of banter. I'll go in there, try and rip your head off, but then I'll shake your hand and say, fucking respect. That man in the arena mentality. I respect anyone who comes in and gives a crash. So, like, I'm just being me. And if it lands me, if it means I get to be a character version of me or I get to be an Air Locker version of me, how good.
Yeah. Good for you, man. And again, that's like that losing all hope was freedom. You got to a point where you've found that through the adversity, which is, I think it is a really freeing place to be like, I mean, to be honest, once you start doing it, you can't go back. And it's
reference point.
Yeah. Yeah. You start going, look, this is the only way I can be. Otherwise, and if an opportunity, if you lose an opportunity because of that, then it's probably a blessing.
But you know what? That's a very powerful strategy, actually. Like, we talk about reference point. Once you have this new reference point, it's like you've got a new level, a new perception of what hard is. Like, it applies to everything. It's almost as if I reckon the data would be unanimous that if you expose yourself to this new thing, this harder thing, and you've got this new reference point, I don't know how far back you're going. So it's almost, the hack is expose yourself to these situations, to these hardships, to these challenges and risks that will develop a new reference point, a new perception of anything, of hard work, of everything. And then it's like, I don't know if I'm going back. So, like, the hack is just exposure.
Yeah, yeah. And it takes a lot of vulnerability, because you have to embrace the fact that you are going to be faced with, that's very unprofessional of me, you're going to be faced.
I'm nearly there too, brother. I've got to bounce soon. We're going to have to do a part 2. I could talk to you all day.
Oh, likewise, man. You have to embrace the fact that you're going to be shit at it. If you are going to embark on this thing that is uncomfortable.
Bro, isn't that a wild concept? Like, I talk about this all the time. I'm on a journey of, like, I'm trying to educate people, which I love coaching. It's my passion, but finding the way to break through, because you're not me, I'm not you. But, like, that understanding, like, why is it that we perceive certain things differently to others? I'll give you an example with fitness. Like, I'll go down the road and spend $40 on a meal. I won't even blink an eye. I want this food. But then I'll go and I'll try and negotiate my way through like a $40, $50 gym membership, and all that entails is like, what?
Yeah.
How did we perceive, like, what happened? And it's the same thing as what you alluded to, which is like, why do I look at something and I'm so filthy that I'm not good at it or I'm not doing it right. But then something else, it's like, I know I suck. I've got to practice. I've got to do heaps and heaps of reps. So I often say to someone like, oh, tell me a job that you've done previously. Oh, I was a waiter or whatever. Were you good? Or tell me something you were really good at, a job you did previously. And I was like, oh, this. I said, Matt, when you first started, what were you like? Were you shit? I was like, oh, yeah, of course I was. So why is this any different? You don't know. How are you going to be good at it? You need to rep it out. You need to practice and you will get better. It's like, why do we think about some things and not just go, hang on, I know I'm not going to be good at this. I'm going to have to practice. I'm going to have to commit. I'm going to have to be disciplined. And eventually I'll probably be pretty good. It just blows my mind how some things, for whatever reason, have been categorized that way.
Yeah, well, I think that comes kind of full circle back to that thing that we learned in school, where if you're not good at it, you've failed, and if you failed, you're a bad person. You know, and I think that, and maybe school isn't the place where it seems to me is that's where you learn that, but that's a frightening thing for a lot of people, for most people, to being able to embrace the fact that I'm going to suck at this. I've never done this before and I'm going to suck at it and it's going to be bad. Here we go. It's hard. School's
one of those things though, bro. It goes into that scarily like rabbit hole where it goes back to we need to be a certain way for that whole system to work.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a line that we could get closer to where it's like speaks to the person, their learning ability, their personality, what they actually want, what they actually need to know. And
it doesn't happen in a classroom.
I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it'll be a beautiful place.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in a classroom of 30 people, that's for sure.
No.
It's got to be, you've got to actually pay attention to the individual, Well, let's just quickly talk about Air Locker and what it is, because that's how we never even... Bro, by the way, this has been a far deeper conversation than I was expecting.
I love it. We can talk about Air Locker anytime, and I'm always talking about Air Locker. And to be honest, brother, if I'm honest, and part of the conversation is I want Air Locker to be appealing because I want people to see what we can do and what we're trying to do. I think an expression of who I am and what's important to me is obviously an expression of the business. So it's nice to be able to show that, which I think is a very valuable and powerful perspective for people to have that goes beyond the ins and outs of, the training and things we do. So I think it's very complimentary anyway. But brother, Air Locker training, man, I want to touch on how cool a journey it is in the fact that I didn't have a reference point, bro. I came from sports, very willing. One thing to note is the transition away from professional sports isn't easy. We have only consumed X amount of information. We don't really have passions outside of sport, to be honest. The mentoring is, not great, and the education. So for me to transition to something I was very passionate about, partly because I had that time away and I got exposed to business and coaching, but
so do you mean as
a part of a franchise?
Do you mean as the athlete, you're kind of, it's just like shut up and do as you're told?
It's more just like it's all encompassing. You're trying to be the best at your sport. I'm focusing on my sport. I'm not going to try and think about trying to do this business and that business. You should leverage who you are and your profile, but outside of that, it is hard. So you know what I mean? It's hard to allocate time to that if you're trying to be the best that you possibly can to be an athlete. So I get it. But the downfalls is when you transition away from sport, you're left in this place where it's like, what do I do? Who am I? Where, what do I know? But what you do know is you were just a professional athlete. You're competitive. You're hardworking. You are, you're open to feedback. Your willingness to learn, like the cultural values that you have as a teammate, these are unbelievable attributes. You don't need a piece of paper. Like these things will serve you well in any career path. So it's understanding and acknowledging that and just applying it to something you're passionate about. But on this journey, bro, to create a franchise, like it's wild, man. You're trying to figure it out. You're doing your best and there's just so much learning, and altitude training has been around for a long time, but more so in a terrestrial state, which means going to a location or at a mountain. And there's not a lack of research or study to show that, this is having an impact, whether it's certain athletes who have trained at altitude to get performance benefits. But about 6 months ago, as a reflection to the self-development journey I'm on, it was definitely a mentoring phase with a guy called Leo who's you know, has been such an amazing mentor for me in the space. And he went through his own adversities at the age of 40, a very successful businessman, you know, had basically a nervous breakdown and was forced to really look at his life and adopt all of these things that we've spoken about. But what I started to understand was, and we've always tried to embed our personality and beliefs into this business, culture, community, shifting people's mindset, and trying to see it for more than just the fitness and aesthetic goals. But when we realize, well, hang on, if we talk about the trend that is ice baths, bro, that you know about, ice baths once upon a time was for athletes and we used it for recovery. But slowly but surely, the science and the influence of Wim Hof, Tim Ferriss, Andrew Huberman, and every other cat and their dog was like, there's something more in this mental strength and resilience where if I go into this thing that's really hard and causes this panic response, fight or flight, and I can overcome it and stay calm and relaxed, okay, this is going to start to have an effect on me, rewire my nervous system, and I'm probably going to be able to handle stress and adversity a lot better in my own life. But the thing we need to understand, which is the hierarchy of that's controlled stress, right? You, in a controlled way, you went into this stressful event and you overcame it using the tools that you have, the power of the brain and your breath. And the reality is that is going to train and build a certain resilience to other stresses in your life. But Mark, if I was to ask you this, ask this simple question. If we were on a deserted island, first things that come to your mind, what would you need?
Food and water.
Beautiful. Anything else?
Air.
Hey, not many people say that. Good one. Now, brother, think about this. You can live without food for 3 weeks, water for 3 days, oxygen the best part of 3 minutes. Facts, there is no more powerful survival, stress, fight or flight response than taking away someone's oxygen. We then had the realization that, hang on, we've actually got the most powerful controlled stress environment and we can use it and apply the tools of a strength and conditioning workout and now create a holistic hybrid program where we can have a genuine proven method to build mental strength and resilience and get all the amazing performance benefits that come with training in a gym, in a workout. And instead of sitting in a pool of cold water or a hot box like a sauna, not discrediting them because they are amazing modalities, but now we can actually combine it with a workout and force you under the most extreme, intense stress or survival response to make choices that overcome discomfort and overcome the most extreme fight or flight response. Now, if you can do this consistently day in, day out through the power of your breath and your thoughts, the two things you can control, you can achieve anything in life because everything we want first comes down to a set of actions and then one common denominator, brother. And that common denominator is you and this, because you can have the best program or the best nutrition plan, but guess what? If you don't get to the gym, it won't happen. And if you don't eat the right food, it doesn't matter. So if everything we want to achieve in our life, this podcast, your career, my ambitions, come down to a set of actions, and I can't make the right choices to practice discipline and achieve those actions, and then we haven't even spoke about what happens when it gets uncomfortable. I'm sore, I'm tired, life gets in the way. You don't stand a chance. You don't stand a chance. So why aren't we training the brain? Because everything, even me standing up, me talking to you is from the brain. Everything is neural from the nervous system. So when you understand that at first principles, how can we create a concept that trains the brain? Even to the point when you talk about PTSD, trauma, stress, depression, these are a hypervigilant expression of the amygdala, which is a portion of your brain responsible for fear and emotion. They are in a constant state of fight or flight. So how are we going to overcome that? Yes, the medical strategies that currently exist with psychology and medication, not discrediting those. But what if we placed you into a stressful event in a controlled way and taught you how to overcome this through the power and control of your own breath and your own choices? How profound and significant would that be? Relinquishing control and actually you going through a process where you can rewire and retrain your nervous system to now find comfort in what was a very discomfort situation or uncomfortable situation. So, man, I'm now at the point where you spoke about I'm in the place I need to be. Once upon a time, brother, we were talking about how altitude burns 30% more calories, and it does, but I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's the fact.
That's not why you're doing it. Yeah.
What I care about is changing this, and now we've unlocked the power of altitude training that no one's ever spoken about, and it's fucking cool. And when every cat and their dog is posting about doing an ice bath, because that's where we're at, that's got the social framework and recognition, when everyone understands the powers of altitude and sees it not as a workout or a gym, but this thing that just gives me so much in my life, in my relationships, in my reactions, in my responses, and I see it as a gateway to everything that I want to achieve, because I'm practicing my mental strength and resilience to make the right choices, then we create a movement around altitude and Air Locker wins. And that's the journey that I'm on. This is a tool for me and a platform to have that significant impact and change, and fucking I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So that's Air Locker.
Wow. Hey, well, dude, it's pretty clear that you believe in it. Either you're a wonderful actor, or you really are, completely in on this thing. And look, here's a saying that I've always loved. You don't take guitar lessons from someone who can't play the guitar. And have a look at you, man. You're a unit. And you have been for a long time. You clearly work hard on your body and your strength and your health. And it's not a difficult it's not difficult to connect the dots that this is something that is important to you. And the fact that you've landed here tells me that there's something in it. And
even that, Mark, though, like, see this, where did that come from at first principles? Like, that's discipline. That's fucking many choices that people will or won't make. And that's this. And everything we've spoken about today. And now an actual tool, like factually, the brain's most extreme and intense fight or flight response comes away from taking oxygen. So when we put ourselves in this environment and challenge ourselves in that way, it's a genuine proven method. Because, bro, when I want to get stronger, I'll put 2 20-kilo weight plates on the bar. But when I want to say to you, I want you to build more mental strength and resilience.
Yeah.
Well, tell me how you're going to do that. Yeah. What is it? You know what I mean? What's the tangible reference? So we're trying to rewrite the narrative and create a genuine results-driven method to say, hey, this is what's happening. And the connection is, if I can overcome the most extreme stress and then compound that by challenging myself in that environment. And, bro, the byproduct of lean muscle gain and fat loss, do you think that's going to happen as a result of you training consistently, making better choices? Of course. It's the last thing you need to worry about.
Yeah. This is interesting. As I injured my low back and I injured my neck. I've had a couple of spinal issues, disc issues in my life. And as I've gotten older, I've moved away from doing workouts that make me have big muscles and look good, and more about how to make me feel good and move well. And it sounds like it's a similar place that you're at with this. Like, it's all. The thing that I'm interested in is, you watch these people who are, let's say, mixed martial artists, and you have a look at some of these physiques in that. And in my opinion, there's something just more aesthetically pleasing in an athlete's body, in someone who uses their body as a body than Phil Heath, than these Mr. Olympia guys. Don't get me wrong, cool, it's cool.
But I get it.
You can see it that their body is a machine rather than an isolated thing. And what you're talking about is going deeper than just the physical aesthetic. And you're killing 3 birds with one stone here with what you're talking about, man. So if you're going to go and work out anyway, why not add in this hormetic stress that you're talking about too? So look, it strikes me as though this is not going to be for everyone, because it sounds like it's more uncomfortable.
This is the thing about it. We are targeting the 80% demographic because it is for everyone. The reason why it is for everyone is because on either end of the spectrum, you could be like me, trying to gain a performance competitive edge from a physical perspective, or, I'm very intrigued and interested with how I can build the other important attributes, which is my mindset and my mental fitness. But the thing about altitude is you do not need the same load and intensity to get results.
Right.
So now you've got a demographic, let's call it an older demographic, who can come in, not have to lift at the same loads, not have to work at the same intensity, but they're getting a huge adaptation from the environment, which is making their body work harder because of the reduced oxygen.
Interesting.
So you can see it works at both ends of the spectrum, and you'll find plenty of testimonials from people who, yes, the program plays a role, but who consistently are training, feel better than ever, less wear and tear on the joints and tendons, and they're able to get genuine results without the load and the impact and the intensity.
Yeah, wow.
So it's kind of like it gives you the best of both worlds.
So what's going on a technical level? You've got a room that's sealed, right?
Yes.
And you're able to remove some of the oxygen from the air in the room. Is it that simple?
It's kind of that simple, because what we do is we bring fresh air into. So there's a couple of fears and misconceptions, and I spoke to you before. Our greatest challenge is our greatest asset, right? And I want to connect with you on this before we finish about America, but there is we haven't experienced altitude in Australia. America's like everyone's done it. High school, snow trips, they've all felt it. So you talk to them.
I've never felt it in my life.
So we're about to open there. You've never experienced it?
No, I mean, I'm asthmatic.
But in America, they're like, oh, this is awesome. What do you mean? They're blown away. In Australia, it's like, what is it? And there's a fear, because when you go into the room, we don't remove air. We're pumping air into it. We just lower the oxygen in the air. And when you walk into the room, you won't even notice an adjustment to your breathing. It's only when you start to work at a certain intensity or you bring awareness to the breath. Now, what we do is we're very breath work focused in there, very guided with the breath, because it's an extremely powerful tool. What will happen is, bro, I'll place a device which is called a pulse oximeter. What that does is that tells you your blood oxygen saturation. So right now, 21% oxygen will be about 96 to 99. And we can't shift that number. You could do the hardest Muay Thai session in the world. It won't move. But you go into our environment at 14% oxygen, it will drop and your heart rate will increase just from being in the environment. During the session, we'll lower your blood sat levels down to 80 to 85 optimally, but even lower, under 80%. Now, what this does is you get a huge adaptation and an enhancement. It intensifies everything. And if you think about, you're now working through this strength and conditioning with less oxygen, the body has to respond.
Well, that's just what it is.
To figure out.
Anyway, any workout is that, regardless of the conditions. But so you're dialing up the stress, the hormetic stress.
Yes.
So
and
the
adaptation
is dialed up as well, right? Your body has to respond to what it's going through
with less work capacity and output that's needed to get those results.
Yeah. Wow. Tell me, you're a guy who, you obviously push yourself in the gym. Do you find it more uncomfortable because, you're in there, you know what you can lift and how far you can?
No.
Do you just go, I just can't go as hard as I can in a normal room?
It's like, it's meaningless in our environment. There's one thing that I talk about, because if someone said to you, someone might say, Mark, you can't work as hard at Air Locker. And I'll say this to you. I'll say, Mark, based on what we know of sprinting, would you say hill sprints are a pretty good strategy or tool to improve, our sprinting speed and power?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what if I said to you, mate, hill sprints are shit. You can't run as fast uphill as you can on flat ground. You'd be like, that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not, you're running on a hill. It's an additional load. It's an added stimulus to get the adaptation.
Yeah. I see.
It's the same thing in air lock. You see what I'm saying?
So so you're not going to appeal to the douchebags who only care about the number on the barbell.
No, you bring them into the environment and you'll take them through a journey. But you know what I love, brother? It's like I go in there and I'll challenge myself. Maybe today we've got a resistance-based strength workout and there's conditioning because we use them as tools, and I'll go on there and I'll do this conditioning at a steady state, say a 70% RPM, and I'll be doing cycle breathing. I'll breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth. It's challenging. But if the breathing gets too hard, my intensity's gone too hard. So I'll go through that and I'll jump off and I'll look at my blood sats and I'll be low, I'll be 80s, and I'll want to keep that. But it's also my response to the stress. So this whole breath work element in a workout and utilizing the tools that I have actual access to that has transfer into my life, and it just completely changes the dynamic. And mate, it's fucking vibey as hell. There's 30 other people. There's the energy of 2 legendary coaches, cracker music, the blue lights. You got all of that. But what it is it's a deeper purpose and intention to a workout powered by this very unique environment that only Air Locker has, and it's the home of altitude, and it's our job to pioneer a movement around altitude training because no one's going to do it for us, and we just need to bring to the forefront the powerful attributes that it has, and it's not a magic pill, and it shouldn't be perceived that way. It's just a really cool environment that if you want a challenge, you're going to love it. And if you want something that is going to have a profound impact on your life, and that's partly because of the people and becoming a product of your environment, but it's also because of the altitude environment and what it forces physiologically inside you. You will get great results, but you will build genuine mental strength and resilience. And all of this stuff just builds awareness, and that awareness will transfer to the way you respond, you react, and you get after your own life.
Have you? I'm real keen to try a workout, man.
Yeah, brother, we got to.
Have you got one in Queensland?
Where are you located now?
I'm on the Gold Coast.
Oh, man. Well, I'll be up in the Goldie soon, brother. We'll have to go in for a workout. It'll be awesome.
Have you got one up here?
Yeah, we got 4
on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Well, we got 4.
That's
we
awesome.
We got Currumbin, Runaway Bay, Southport, Burleigh Heads to open up. And have I missed one? Southport, Runaway Bay, Currumbin.
I'm in Ashmore, right near Southport, man. So when you hit me up when you're here, we'll go and work out. It'll be cool because as you heard in that last podcast, I'm all about the breath work. It's been helping me with my asthma, and
it's a different beast, man. And even with asthma, we get that a lot. But what this does is it forces a full inhalation. And a full breath. So like the respiratory system just expands and strengthens. So we've found profound results. And obviously it's a bit of am I going to be okay? But it's actually has offered significant benefits. So the breathwork application, what I describe it as, breathwork is very powerful, and I actually find it quite challenging to go through, especially on that like deeper experience. But in this environment, you're forced to breathe.
Yeah.
So it's like it forces you to have a very very intentional breath.
Yeah.
And it enhances it as a practice. That's what I love about it. Like go to the normal gym and try and breathe. Like it's harder, weirdly. But in here, because you have to, it brings so much awareness and attention to the breath. You're genuinely practicing it, but in an enhanced environment where you're in some respects forced. So like, I love that experience.
How cool. We live in a world, in a society where we can manipulate the environment that we live in. So, you're kind of taking some technological tricks and mixing it with what we know about biology and creating this environment to get the most out of your workout. I dig it, man. I can see why you're so passionate about it. It's a cool concept.
But again, speaking personally, bro, put all that aside. I don't give a shit about the program or any of that. I care about the opportunity to change people's lifestyle, change people's habits, change people's perspectives. And if you change those things, everything else is going to happen. Yeah. It's just facts.
Yeah, I'm into that, dude. Hey, have you got time to talk quickly about a bit of Gladiators?
Yeah, I can talk quickly, bro. I got another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool that they let you design your own costume.
Look, I'll be honest. The costumes are pretty out there. They've gone for the superhero vibe, which I get, but I'll have to be honest. There was a moment where, and if you look at some of the other boys' costumes, Cyclone, for example, he's a gladiator. It was about a midriff on the belly button, and I was like, well, if we're going to do this, let's do it. Let's alter it. Let's bring it up. Let's just expose the midsection.
Yeah.
Now the shorts was another one. They were fairly short, but I was like, and they were just like kind of loose. I was like, hey, if we're going to do this, let's bring them up. Let's get the elastic around the bottom, and let's, it's the scrunch bums. Let's
good for you, man.
I want to look good.
Good for you, dude. Look, if you've got it, flaunt it. That's a never a truer saying for that, man. Though it's like, it's funny though. I remember I did when I was younger. I did this show, and for the opening titles, they wanted me. It was a reality show, so I wasn't playing a character. I was being myself. They wanted me to wear this like tight pink V-neck jumper thing, and I'm a guy who wears Black Sabbath t-shirts. Like I walked into the fitting wearing a Black Sabbath t-shirt, and they've got me to wear this thing, and I was too young at the time to go, I'm not wearing that. But it wasn't me playing a character, it was me being myself. Now Gladiators, this is the whole thing, right? It's like it's 80s. I must say I dig how they've kept the cheese, it's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so goofy, which is really, it's entertainment, man. It's really fun. And to see you there with your thing in your hair and your little booty shorts just kicking the shit out of people, it's like, it's such a mixed message. And it's good on you, man. It's really fun. It's a cool show.
Brother.
You're doing.
And yeah, people talk about the crop top and the sparkles all the time.
Yeah.
And I sort of say, well, what's worse, like that, or you coming up facing sparkles and then getting smashed? Like I'd be worried about that more than the person wearing the crop top.
That's a really good point. It's like that you take the power away from people the moment they start giving you shit about it. It's like, well, I'll still beat you. So
it's gonna be worse for you when you get beaten by sparkles.
Yeah. How long ago did you shoot that?
Back end of last year, September.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's been in the can for a while.
Yeah. It was an awesome experience. Like, yeah, pretty crazy. Like I hadn't had an experience like that. It's big days. It's pretty crazy, but it's just so cool to see it come to life. And, you know, where we get the opportunity to do this again, I'm just so excited. Like now you understand it all and you got the crinkles out. It's like, just can't wait to really embrace Phoenix and just get around it. I'm really looking forward to it. But it's been such a cool show. Like you said, there's a nostalgia for us. And then, hey, this is the next generation's opportunity, the kids to get around it and enjoy it. So I'm glad that they've, in some ways, harnessed it towards that demographic as well.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Did you watch it as a kid?
Yeah, bro. I loved it. I was about 6.
How old are you now?
I'm 34. I remember it and I was like, I was a massive fan. Like it was unreal. I was a big like Vulcan fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Remember the English one? Was his name Wolf? And he was just such a cock. And it was like, we just loved to hate him, you know. No, it was great. It's I was pretty stoked when I saw the ads that it was coming back. I went on a binge not that long ago of the retro Gladiators. So, yeah, and I was just like, I think I was sick. And I was like, what am I going to watch? I'm going to watch Gladiators. And I was like, man, they should do a new one. And then lo and behold, here we are. So it's a lot of fun, dude. How cool to be doing that.
Oh, it's the best, bro.
Yeah, and you're kind of like the team captain almost.
Oh, yeah. Like I probably took that little role. Obviously, just I love being around teams. I love leadership. I embrace leadership. And they're just such an awesome bunch of people. I'm sure you've had different experiences, but I couldn't believe like – they're just good people and we all got along and it was just seamless and just legendary. And I'm sure everyone's looking forward to the opportunity to progress on what has been. But, a couple episodes left. The finals are my favourite. It really heats up. And so what's even cool is someone's playing to be a gladiator. Like it's not a car, it's not money. So that's what they're playing for.
Oh, I'm only one episode in. Wow, that's cool. Yeah. That's how fun. Yeah, I like that. Hey, very, very cool, man. What a journey. I really did not expect. I guess I profiled you, bro. I did not expect this to go anywhere near as deep as we did. So this has been.
I love that. And yeah, hey, Mark, I'll give you one bit on that. It's an awesome piece. And I talk about strategy. I just like feel really good about diving into this because it is awareness, and it's I don't know. I explained to you like feeling weird about saying strategy because I feel like it has a certain perception, but. You know, they're in the position that I'm in, exposed to all these different people. They straight away when you look, I don't speak. You are going to have a certain perception of who I am in a profile. It's even more powerful for me when this big guy with all these tattoos lunges at you with a big smile and greets you like a rock star, and like, you know what I mean. So it's like I kind of love it because you've set yourself up for what this is going to be, and in some respects, and not saying for you, but in some respects, it might come with certain stereotypes or whatever, but then it's like you completely break through that and it's 10 times more impactful than if it was just a normal and a nice, you know what I mean? So I do recognize that, and it's cool. It's cool to break the mold or what is expected, which I love. But mate, I've had a very I've loved this conversation, and I've got a lot of respect for what you're doing and this platform, and I really look forward to talking to you again, mate. And any way that I can support you and what you're doing, it'd be my pleasure. Oh, awesome, man. It's a straight back at you, dude. It's been really cool. Hit me up when you're on the Goldie, man. Yes, I will. And we'll go train and get after it. I can't wait to see the gym. Sounds good, legend. All right, brother. Cheers. All right, brother.